Welcome back to the Four Pillars of Investing. We're studying cash flow positions. In the last segment, we talked about the general idea that cash flow is about how you position yourself. There's long positions, short positions, asset protected positions, tax advantage positions. There's time decay positions. There's capital gain positions. There's cash flow positions. And there's positions where we go for leverage positions and rate. And we spoke about the keys of compounding being money, rate, and time, all three of these here. And the idea of wanting to accelerate rate. That is such a nice thing to be able to do. And I'll just say that when it comes to rate, many people assume that that isn't changeable, and so they accept a general rate. Like, what is the average in the market? Let's hope it maintains, and I'll curtail my time and my goals to fit my rate. And what's interesting is that seems to take the freedom out of things. If they say, look, I've got $10,000 and that's how much I make a year, or whatever your salary might be, hopefully more, but that's the best rate we can get and that's how much time you have left. Well, what is there to do other than have a it's like your fate's sealed. If you have perfect discipline, you kind of max out, right? That, look, if you start with this amount, and this is your rate, and this is 20 years. That's your fate. You better make sure you invest for the 20 years and invest, and that's it. And that's kind of how I really appreciate guys like Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey, because they're great disciplinarians. They're great in getting people organized and getting them rebooted. They're great in getting people focused, where you spend more time on their grocery list than their investments. They're great with consistency. They're great with discipline. Where I would say we can improve, they're really good for employees, for people that are not going to put their heart and soul in investing, a person who's not going to take a lengthy course, a person who would never get an ultimate options type of course. They're great for the average employee. I had a guy to me the other day, says, look, Andy, I want to put a lot of time into this. What's my best bet? We'll go to Dave and Susie, and your rate will be what it will be with a financial advisor, and your years will be what they're in. You're starting with where you are, and then you can kind of figure out what the best you can do is. The one thing people can't change is years. Maybe I don't want to wait 20 years to achieve my goals. Maybe I want to be maybe I'm, like my son, and they say, Dad, I want to be independently wealthy, much, much younger. I want to do it, maybe in my 20s or my 30s. Well, they don't have the 90 years to wait. Right? Maybe to get to Buffett's billions, you might have to wait 90 years, but I'd like to at least be financially free in my 20s maybe, or my 30s. So what do? You start messing with the rate, right? You start messing with the rate, and that means leverage most of the time. So let's get out of theory mode, talk about the rewards, the risks, and the idea of leverage. Let's study leveraged positions as a way to increase rate, but also understanding increased risk, always matched with risk. So let's do this. This will be fun. Let's put this in, let's put on the icon here and put this to fit in the window, which it looks like it wants to. Can we do that? Get rid of this maybe. Hide that. Yeah, that gives us a fair shot here. Let's see what we can do with this. Move down around to where we can see everything. And let's bring on a calculator right here. And let's begin with a real estate example. Now, I'm not comfortable in placing myself as any remotely even an expert on real estate. Not at all. So let's make the clear that this is not a real estate lesson. This is a compounding lesson. This is a leverage lesson, not a real estate lesson. I'm going to leave that to the guys that do it at a higher level. Do I own real estate? Of course I do. Does that make me an expert? Of course it doesn't. But it does give me a chance to give examples of compounding. So it's not a real estate example. This is a compounding example. So here we go. We choose an asset called real estate. We do a fundamental and technical analysis on it. And we say, we think that this can grow 10% over the next year or 2 years. We could be wrong, but based on the fundamentals and technicals we see, this is what our projection would be. We could totally be wrong. And so let's say this home is $100,000, and that is the value initially. Okay, we'll call that V initial. And let's say that a 10% gain would be $110,000, and that would be a V final. And we're going to take a picture of that immediately. So in case I decide to erase or do things differently, I've got it. So we'll just do that and keep that right there, and beautiful. In fact, you know what we'll do? We'll paste that to the top so we can have it and not have it move. Okay, and this will be in the top as well. So we're going to look at this formula, and math is not my most exciting subject. This is worth learning because it's just two math problems. It's a subtraction problem and a division problem in that order. So we're going to use the calculator to do the subtraction and the division. So don't think of this as one formula. It's easier if you think of two different math processes. A subtraction of the final value of this house, and then we subtract the initial value, or what we might call the money we pulled out minus the money we put in. We could definitely justify saying it that way. And then we divide by the money we put in. That might be a cool way to look at it. So let's say we buy this with cash first, and let's put in these numbers. $110,000 will go first, minus the $100,000 that we put in. So let's do that math here. $110,000, and we subtract the money we put in, which was $100,000, and we get $10,000 profit. So our 10% gives us a profit of $10,000. Okay, let's now, and cash flow will be different, but we'll deal with cash flow when we get there. Let's start with capital gain just to get the compounding down. We're going to divide that by the amount of money we put in, which is $100,000. So again, the initial investment, we feel it's going to climb to this final value, this initial value. So we come over here to our calculator and we say we're going to divide this by $100,000, and we get 0.1, which is 10%. So let's take a picture of that immediately so we don't lose that little picture there. It's just covered about like this high. We got a picture of it. So now I can put that on there, and we won't lose it. Now this is, we're going to do a lot of this math, and we're going to do it over and over again. We'll probably do what we did there about 20 times in this segment. So this segment will be less about like an instructional segment, more like homework, more like practice, more like math. And I think you'll enjoy this process as well, because we're going to do it with many different asset classes, and we're just going to go slow to pound it in. I really know the more you shoot foul shots, the better you get at foul shots. And it's a big mistake on the education continuum to say, okay, I get it, I'm proficient now. Proficiency comes through doing it over and over and over, time and time again. So let's enjoy this process together, and let's not rush it. Let's take a look at this idea here, both sides. If we took this 10,000 and we went down, so let's say we only get 90,000 back. We have to sell it at 90, but we paid 100, right? So now we'd be down $10,000, and we divide that by the 100 we put in. We're minus 10%, right? So you can go down either way. Okay, let's look at both sides of possibly using some debt here. Let's say we get out the same 110,000, so 110,000. And let's subtract this idea though. Let's say you put in 25,000 of your own money, plus you went out and got $75,000 of the bank's money, right? Which is very, very common in real estate. They'll loan you 25% on a rental property or something like that. And let's do the math on that. So let's X this out right here and say $110,000. Let's subtract the 25 that you put in, and let's subtract the 75 that the bank put in. We get the same $10,000, but we're going to divide. This is kind of nice. We're going to divide by the 25,000, the initial that you put in. So you didn't put in the whole thing. You just put in 25 this time. So we divide by 25,000, and we get 40%. That's a big deal. And of course, if it went down, you'd lose the same money, right? You could lose that 40% just as well. So all this does is accelerate. Now, let's talk about two things. I know that there's a brilliant accountant or a brilliant engineer saying, "Well, Andy, you had to pay interest on that." Yeah, I get that. I know the interest is going to cost me some money. I get that. I'm not, I'm not a smart guy, but I at least know that, right? I at least know that. But my invitation to you, if you have that type of personality, is to say, well, what's the point Andy is trying to make, and is there a valid point, rather than trying to look at the minors and the majors. I get it. It's not going to be exactly 40 because maybe I had to pay them some interest along the way, but it's going to be significantly higher than this. And we're going to keep the numbers simple. So hopefully you can appreciate the beauty of simplicity and understanding, yes, there would be an interest payment, but it's going to be higher. You're going to make more. If it goes up, you're going to make more money this way or this way than with cash. If it goes down, you're going to lose more money this way than with cash. Let's just suffice to say that. Okay, now let's tell a different story, and let's move this up, and let's pretend that this house has a history, and let's pretend this was owned by a lady named Grandma Mabel, and Grandma Mabel passed away, and her little granddaughter Sally, so much wanted to buy the house. From the other siblings, and she really wanted it to be her own, and she has great memories of Grandma's cinnamon rolls in there, and she just wished she could be in Grandma's house. But you know what? She was so young at the time, she couldn't get it. So the siblings got together and they sold it to some other dude, and now it's some other dude's house. And here he is right here. Here's a picture of him. He looks exactly like this, and here is Grandma Mabel's house. He's got it. Well, let's say that we do a fundamental analysis on it. We don't know the history of this. We didn't know this belonged to Grandma Mabel, but here's you. And you look exactly like that. See how handsome you are? See how good you look? I mean, you're a beautiful human being right here. And you say, you know what? I think this house is going to go up, but I don't want to buy the house. I want to buy some time. I'd like to buy 30 days of time, right? 30 days of time, not the house. But I'll give you $5,000, and let's lock in that $100,000 price you got it up for here for the next 30 days. And so I tie that up. And then little Sally comes along and she sees that this was up for sale for $100,000. Who's she going to talk to? Another word for choice that starts with an O is option. That's another word for choice that starts with an O. And so maybe she really wants to buy Grandma Mabel's house now. She's a little older. She's got a little more money. She really wants it. But that guy has already sold the rights to it for you over the next 30 days. So who's she really need to talk to? Because you have the option to buy it at $100,000 over the next 30 days, and there's nothing little Sally could do but watch you do it. So maybe what you do is say, you know what, Sally, I don't own the house. This guy does. I don't own the house. But you're right. I do own the option contract, and I can get it for $100,000. And I believe in people over profits. I can see, little Sally, that you want little Grandma Mama's home. You might pay more for it than the market, but I think I can get $110,000 out of it. That means that I could buy it for $100,000, right? If I had cash, I could give this guy $100,000. I'd sell it for $110,000. I'd make $10,000 on it. So I'll tell you what, you give me $10,000 right now. That will be the final value of this contract, $10,000. And I'll be happy. So you sell Sally, little Sally, that contract. Now she has the power to spend the $100,000 and move into that house. So she gives you $10,000. Now remember, you paid how much of your money? You paid $5,000 to get that contract. See that? $5,000. So let's do the math on this. So the amount of money Sally gave you was $10,000 for the contract, and you're going to subtract the $5,000 that you put in, which is going to give you $5,000, divided by 5,000 is 100%. Okay, 1, and percent means hundreds. So by using that same formula, that means that you just did 100% on your money. See that? And that's entirely viable as well, right? It's possible. A lot of people choose to do this in real estate, that 40 is plenty, than trying to do this. This is probably harder to do, and you don't know if it's Grandmama or if Sally. And certainly if that 30 days passes, you could still buy the house, but now you've spent 105 instead of just 100, right? That way. Or you could, or it might be nice too, though, because if all of a sudden you find there's nuclear waste in your due diligence, you know, you've tied up the house for sure, but you can also walk away. And now you only, here you risk 100,000, here you risk 25 plus 75, 100,000, here you only risk 5,000. So I'm not going to tell you what the right thing and wrong thing to do is right here, because that's not the point. The point is what? What are we really studying right here, right? We're studying leverage. And we're simply opening our mind to the idea that with financial education, we can manipulate a 10% increase many different ways. And this is all Wall Street does. This is all that the Forex is about, is the Forex has insane amounts of leverage on small moves. So you can't control very much the housing market, but you can control your position. And here was a cash position. Here was a bank leverage position. Here was a contract position, right? Here's another position that's extremely realistic. And this is the one that my friends Kenny McElroy would take and Than Merrill would take, and other people that invest in real estate at their level. I'm not claiming I'm good enough to do this. I'm just saying I know this is how they do it, and if you want to know more, they can teach you about it. I'm not a real estate expert. But I am willing to talk about the leverage and the compounding here. Okay, so watch this. Let's say that we think we can get this same gain here. Okay, so we get 110,000 right here. Now watch this. And that's going to be subtracted by something very similar to this. We're going to have definitely $75,000 from the bank. Okay, and oh, I should, you know, before I do this, I should capture all this stuff because I'd hate to lose it. So let's not lose that. Let's at least get this much, and then we can get rid of all that. That's a better way to go. Photo, put this baby in right there. That's a pretty long one. Option contract. That looks pretty good. Let's display that at the top. So watch this right here. Let's say that we're still going to look to get the same 110 out of this minus something different. Let's say that they decide to put $75,000 of bank money just like that one. Okay. Plus they're going to put in, watch this, $25,000 of what they call private equity, plus, let's do this, plus zero, let's put that in green to keep consistent, zero of their money, like that. And this is called syndication, and this happens all the time, okay? For example, I'm in real estate right now in this one and this way, but they're using my 25,000, so to speak. In other words, they could go and put their own 25 grand in, or they could go raise what they call private equity and get guys like me to put it in. So let's say you believe this is going to be $110,000 at the end of the year, and you get $75,000 from the bank, you get $25,000 from me, and you put in zero, right? You put in zero. That's called private equity or syndication. And what happens is you now get to buy that house and get a percentage of that home called sponsorship equity. Okay, and you might give me some of these profits. So let's see, that's still going to be the same 10,000. Now watch this. So you're putting in zero money, and maybe you share that 10,000 with me when you sell it. You know, I put in a bunch, and maybe you sell that 10,000 with me, and you give me some of those profits. But whatever amount of money you take out of this, let's just do the math. $110,000 minus $75,000 minus the 25 you got from private investors like me minus the zero you put in is $10,000. Okay, and now let's say of that 10,000 you give me back even 7 of it. right? 7 of it. You give me 7 grand. That leaves you 3. That leaves you 3. And let's say you give the bank some interest. So let's say there's $1,000 in interest you give to the bank. Okay, that leaves you 2 divided by the amount of money you put in, which is 0, is infinity. So now we have an infinite return. In other words, any money you take out of this didn't take any, because 100% of the money came from OPM. It came from other people. Half the bank, or 3/4 of it from the bank, 1/4 of it private equity. That's called a syndication, other investors. And I know this happens all the time. I've never been the infinite return guy on this, but I've been the guy that puts in the 25 grand before. And my friends have gotten the infinite return, which I'm okay with because they've been better at the fundamental and the technical analysis on choosing the asset than me. And they have a better feel than this than I do. And so I'm fine with that. And they deserve an infinite return if they have that level of financial education and also risk management on the property. And so the purpose of this, and I know it's lengthy, and we're actually going to do this 2 more times for practice, is just to see that the percent, if you want to control rate, you control your position. And here is the thing I can tell you that we're going to set up for infinite return is we're taking this closer to 0 each time. We went from 100,000 to 25,000 to 5,000 to ultimately doing a deal with 100% of other people's money. And that is really a key to infinite return, okay? And that's as close as to what we'd like to get at the professional level. The challenge with that is this is not investing for the average person. This is for someone who decides to dedicate themselves to the education. And you can understand that there's a difference between investing and wanting to be a professional investor. Let me put it to you this way. Let's look at a doctor or a lawyer. Okay, look, listen to my language. I don't really want to spend the time to go to law school, and I don't really want to be a lawyer. I just want to defend myself in a murder trial. See, now you're dead, right? Oh, I don't really want to be a doctor. I don't really want to go to the school and put in the expense of med school and get those student loans and the side of blood. I just want the money that doctors and lawyers make. Can you do that for me? And the answer is no. If a person wants to have what a lawyer has, they become what the lawyer has become. They pay the price in education and effort. If a person wants to have and do what a doctor does, they become a doctor. And the conversation I have over and over and over again with everybody is they say, Andy, I really don't want to put a lot of time into my investing. I don't want to be a professional investor, yet I want to invest. To me, in my context, that's very much like saying, well, I don't really want to be a doctor. I want to have what they have and do what they do, but I don't want to mess with having to pay attention to it and see all those silly patients. And I'd like the golf club membership and the country club membership, but I don't want to actually do all the stuff doctors do. I don't want to learn all the stuff doctors learn. And it's funny, but yet I want to have what a doctor has and do what a doctor does. So I get that conversation a lot when I start talking to people about investing, about where they really want to be. This course is not for someone who necessarily wants to quit their full-time job, but it's a course for someone who says, I would like to be an investor, and I'd like to have what investors have and do what investors do. Well, I'm going to become what they become. And a lot of people want to do the have, but they don't want to do the do, and they don't want to do the be. And that's be, do, have. And that's from my friend Blair Singer and Robert Kiyosaki, is we be, then we can do, then we can have. And it goes in that order. So what you're doing that most people aren't doing is you're working on the be, is you're becoming knowledgeable, you're becoming practiced, you're becoming the type of person that can arrive at this someday. And you absolutely could. So the best return on investment percentage I can tell you that's possible is infinity. How do you get that? Awesome fundamentals on real estate, awesome technicals on real estate, awesome risk management on real estate, great raising capital skills, Why will people give you this money? If they believe you can do this. If they believe you can do this and really have a great asset and understand the fundamentals and technicals and where it's going to go, they will give you that money. And then you have zero money in the deal, you have infinite return. And that's how guys, get $1 billion under management in assets. They get it from other people. And that's the same way a 401k works, by the way, is the 401ks, you supply all the money and Wall Street takes it and they invest it for you and they take what's called a fee, and we'll get to that. So I know this is laborious. Let's put that in again so we can complete our nice little chart here. 110,000 minus three things. 75K put in by the bank plus 25K put in, 25K put in by private investors plus 0 put in by you divided by the 0 that was put in by you is, voila, an infinite return. An infinite return right there. And let's just take a picture of this so we can have that. And we'll get rid of these. And let's move on and let's do another one to keep practicing. We're going to spend a little more than an hour on this probably to do these examples. But there you go. That's what it looks like when we're all said and done in there. Isn't that a beautiful thing? It's a beautiful looking little chart right there that we just built. Okay, so let's do this again if we can, and check it out. Let's check this out. Let's go with 1,000 shares of Acme. So let's just say that we have 1,000 shares we're going to do here, and we think this is going to go from $100 to $110. That means our initial investment would be $100,000. You guessed it, up to 110. So we're going to have the same V final, same V initial, and we'll just take a picture of that to start off with. That's what we come up with. Now, how do we come up with the idea it could do that? Well, we looked at the fundamental analysis, and we looked at the technical analysis. Now, this is something I feel I have a little bit more experience on, so I can be a little bit more confident than I would be in real estate. Let's make sure we make this our, match that up fairly close, make that on the top. And let's do the same thing. So obviously in cash, that would take, we would, put in 100 and pull out on a $10 move. So we're looking for a 10% move here once again. And we say that would be $110,000 out minus, we'll put this in green this time to be consistent, $100,000 we put in divided by $100,000 we put in. And people say, Andy, are you really going to be redundant and do that with the calculator again? Yep, I am. 110,000 minus 100,000 doesn't take that long to do, right? Just divided by 100,000 equals 10%. So nice, 10% right there. Let's take a picture of that right out of the gate. So we'll build the same thing here with stock as we did with real estate, and that's the idea. So let's just takes just a couple seconds to do. And there's our cash one right there. So that looks good right there with the cash idea. Boom, right there. Close enough. Okay, oh, we ought to put that on top so we don't lose it. So let's put that on the top. Okay, now debt. They do not give you as much debt initially as they would with a real estate deal. I sometimes smile. My friend Robert says, they'll never loan you money to buy a stock or a mutual fund or whatever. And there's a lot of truth to that. They probably won't loan you one for a mutual fund, I'm not sure, but I know they will for stock. And it's called margin. And they don't give you quite as much. So let's go 110,000. But what they also don't do is take you through an approval process, and they don't take you through all this rigmarole, and they adjust it. It's like having a line of credit. It's like a HELOC on your house. Once you get it, you've got it. And so let's say that you go 110, and you subtract that from $50,000 in what's called a margin account, right? And you add to that $50,000 your own 50 grand. And so now you're controlling $100,000 worth of stock with $50,000 worth of cash. So very similar to real estate. The difference is real estate will give you a little bit more. Depending on if you're a new trader, they usually match you. So you can put in 50,000 for every dollar you put in, they'll match it with $1. So there you go. People say, well, why would I get on my 401k? They match. Well, these guys will match you with debt at least. So here we go. We got $110,000 in stock. We pulled out minus the $50,000 we got to give back to the brokerage minus the $50,000 we put in gives us that same $10,000. Whoops. That same $10,000 divided by the $50,000 we put in is 20%. So we put in $50,000 of the money, and we double our return, double our risk. So that's all that does, is double return, double the risk. We always talk about the risk as well as the reward every single time. It could go up, it could go down. This is not a lesson on anything more than what? Than leverage, than compounding. That's all this is about. That's all we care about for right now. So let's stick that on top. So we always have it, and let's do this. Now, let's say that we have an investor over here. Does this sound familiar? See why the repetition is important? Who owns 1,000 shares of Acme, and he owns it. And we go to him. Here's you. See how good looking you are? Here's you. And you say, you know what? I'll give you $5 a share to hold that for 30 days. So I don't want the stock. I just want time. See how familiar this is? Why I'm taking you through it twice. Okay, I just want 30 days of time, and that's all I want. But I want a guaranteed price at that $100 a share. I want it at $100 per share. That's what I want it at for 30 days. And I'll give you $5 a share for that. So it's $5,000 on 1,000 shares. Notice that you didn't buy the stock, you bought a choice. In other words, for choice that starts with an O is option, right? If I can write that semi-legibly, option. So you now have the right to buy this at $100 a share anytime in the next 30 days. Now that could be nice because now your risk isn't $100,000 anymore. Now your risk is only 5. Here it's 100, here it's 100. 100 of cash, 100 you owe, 50 of cash, both a commitment. But here it's only $5,000. So if that stock goes down, you walk away. If it goes up, then you can buy it at 100 even though it's higher. So that's a nice position to be in. Same as is the real estate example. If you need to go through those twice, there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to go through something more than once till it hits you and you're like, oh, I got it. Awesome. So let's say someone comes to you and says, I want to buy this. And I want to talk to you because you have the contract. And I want to be able to buy it at 100. I says, you know what? That's fair. But I think it's going to 110. In fact, maybe it has gone to 110 already. And you say, tell you what, I'll give me $10,000 for this. Give me $10,000, and the contract is yours. And then you can do the deal. And so, fair enough, we sell the contract instead of the stock, but we get the same benefit of the movement on the stock, right? And we'll do more of this when we get into options. Don't panic if it doesn't hit you the first time. How cool this can be. So here. You got 10,000 minus the 5,000 that you put in, right? Minus the 5,000 you put in, divided by the 5,000 you put in. So let's see where that works out. Here we have $10,000, right? Minus the 5,000 you gave him for the contract, right? That equals 5,000. Divided by the 5,000 you put in should be 100%. Whoop, that went wrong. Let's see. Let's make sure we do that right. 10,000. Boy, I just hit those buttons too quick. 1, 2, 3. 10,000 subtract 5,000 equals 5,000 divided by 5,000 is 100% on our money. So we get to put 100% in there. Let's take a picture of that right out of the gate. So we have that. We're just building on it. And again, this is not about buying stock. This is not about margin accounts. This is not about option contracts. Let's be real centered on what our lesson is right now. We're simply gaining an appreciation for our ability to take the same movement, the same 10% movement. Oh, excuse me. Let's bring that down here. The same 10% movement of this stock and get a higher return off of it. That's all that we're doing right here. Okay, we're talking about positions as a foundation to actually going out and doing this. Okay, now I will tell you that these are equally popular, and the option contract is far more popular in the stock market than it is the or in the stock and options market than is the real estate market. Yes, there are some option contracts that you'll see in the real estate market. There's option money placed down a lot of the time, but it's usually a sincere idea of I want the property and I'm willing to pay a little more for it to lock it up for a little while first, right? But you see this in the stock market every day. There are options bought every single day, all the time. They don't always pay 100%. It might have only gone up, maybe it only goes up, instead of $10, goes up $1, whatever. But we're working on a principle here more than anything else, okay? The idea of 100,000 down to 50, 50 down to 5, and this would be an interesting idea right here. What if we could be like the private equity guy, but instead of private equity, maybe what we'd call this is maybe you are a 401k guy, or maybe you're a hedge fund, and maybe you get serious enough about this that you'd like to trade other people's money. Let's see, it's not like in how I spelled hedge there, obviously, because I didn't spell it right. There we go. Maybe you want to get in the hedge fund business, or what have you, and that would be kind of cool, because what would happen then is you would raise all kinds of cash, right? All kinds. Let's go here with a little bit different idea. Let's say instead of doing 1,000 shares, let's do 1,000,000 shares. So now we think we can sell this for $110 million because we did 1,000,000 shares, right? That'd be pretty cool. And let's say we're going to subtract that by $100 million that we raised from other people. Let's put that in blue or orange or whatever. Maybe blue would be a nice color. Let's say we do that. So let me rewrite this better. Let's just say it's $110 million minus, let's go $100 million, because you could do this with 1 share, 1,000 shares, or 1,000,000 shares, right? So let's say we got up to 110 million and we subtract 1,000,000. That'd be pretty cool. So that's that. Now, that's that equation that's easy, okay? But let's say now you take this and you say, but as the hedge fund manager, I'm going to take 10% of everything above the high water mark. So you're going to times this by 10% for you. So that's going to be the amount of money you pull out of this, minus 0 money put in by you, right? Divided by 0 money put in by you. Well, that's going to be pretty fun math to do. We got 110. We sold this stuff for $110 million, right? There you go. Minus 100 million raised by the private equity people, right? Equals $10 million. And what you do is you get 10% of that. So we're going to times that by 0.1. So you get 1,000,000 of it, divided by 0 down here, right? Minus 0 divided by 0. Let's see if we can get this. You had $1 million. Whoop, wrong button. Excuse me. So you got $1 million, right? Divided by 0 is an infinite return. And if you don't believe that happens, go look at the 401k industry. John Bogle, they put in 0% of the capital. All of it comes from other investors. So that's basically the 401k industry right there in Wall Street. And the reason they love assets under management is everybody else produces the assets. They take a percentage, whether it's 2%, 1%, or in hedge fund managers' case, they can take 10% of the above the high water mark. And it depends on how good they are at this, right? How good are they at this? So you're learning that the cash flow positions are pretty easy to get. It's what the secret sauce that someone has is their ability to do fundamental technical analysis and manage risk. That's the key. But you can choose which return you want to go for, I've been very tempted to start a hedge fund. I would probably not do a real estate readily, or maybe if I partnered with people that knew. But yeah, raising money is the number one skill of an entrepreneur, and maybe that's what you think about it. Raising money is actually the easy part. Getting people a return is the hard part. If you get people a return, word will get out. You don't have to be much of a salesman. People think, well, I can never raise money. I can never talk to people. Baloney. Man, ask someone like, Than Merrill how long it takes him to raise $1 million. A click of a button. Send out an email. Ask Kenny McElroy how long it takes to raise $1 million. Click of a button. There's a lot of people like Bernie Madoff that went to prison because they could raise the money, but they couldn't fulfill the investment part. So the fundamental and technical analysis is really, really key, and understanding the cash flow and risk management is really, really key. And if you get it down, why not? And someone might say, there's that openness or that closeness of a person's little voice. Well, I just don't want to get in that. Well, okay, that's fine. But think about where these things go. So, what percent do you want? What percent do you want to go to, and what risk is associated with that? And where you go? Let's do the last one on this segment of leverage, because it's so critical. Let's take and pull these back off here, and just a quick review of what we did. Bam, incredible returns, tempered with the risk that is there. Let's do one in business. This is kind of fun. I'll do this one quickly. Maybe a little bit faster. I have an asset called an artifact, and I really owe my business partner for this. He was watching me give a lecture on this once, and I was lamenting about 401k, showing all the research I'd done, all the work I'd done in a presentation. And when we were finished at the break, he came up and he wrote down this on a paper. He wrote down 401 chaos. I go, well, it is chaotic. He goes, no, that's the title of the book you're going to write tonight. So I started writing that book, and he helped me with it. And, Kim and Robert Kiyosaki have said, Andy, create artifacts. What can you do to share with the world? Create artifacts. That's what they did with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I looked at Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It was 180 pages long. So I made this 180 pages long, and it had a title and a subtitle and a tagline. The author, I just copied what he did. And I was nervous as heck. It might be, like 2 stars on Amazon or something, but it's done very well. Well, check this out. This is a really interesting thing to think about it in this light. Very interesting. This is interesting. Let's say that I spend $1.50 to print, put together everything. It averages $1.50 a book. And let's say I sell my book for $17 on, Amazon or, Barnes and Noble or whatever. And that's the increase. So there's my initial investment. There's my final value of the investment, right? Initial value, final value. So you take $17 minus that $1.50 that I put in, right? Divided by that $1.50 that I put in. That's a great return. I moved this over so we could see it easier. So let's move it over even a little more. 17 subtract $1.50 equals 50/50 divided by that $1.50 is 1,000%. Remember, you got to move the decimal place too to get the percent, right? So it's 1,033%. So I encourage anyone to do that. My mentors, Robert and Kim Kiyosaki, said write a book. They've written it. They were successful. They said you should write one too. And so I wrote a book. That's a great return on investment, really, when you think about it that way. Now, of course, you got to promote it, and, you got to advertise. All that other stuff plays in, and this is just a compounding lesson. Let's say that let's take a picture of that so we don't lose that. Just make sure we're consistent in our habit of what we've done. And we'll do this as the last, the last ones we're going to do. But let's say I use the bank's money, and let's say that the interest on a credit card to do this, for a large order, they say, look, 0 or 30 days, same as cash, something like that. We'll loan it to you as long as you get paid it off. So we go $17 minus $1.50 that they put in, okay, plus the amount of my money, which I'll put in, which is 0, right, divided by the amount of mine put in, which is 0. So here, my risk is still $1.50, but my out-of-pocket is 0. That's a big difference. both places my risk is $1.50. If no one buys the book and they suck, I'm left with a bunch of books, and for every one, it's cost me $1.50. So here we got $17 minus $1.50 from the bank minus $0 from me divided by $0 from me is an infinite return. So infinite return, you're seeing a pattern here of when you don't use any of your money, your return gets higher. And that's really the ultimate goal I have every time. Now, I don't always achieve it. Often I have to put in some of my own money. I don't always achieve that, but that's the law of infinite return we're going to talk about. Okay, let's say it's even cooler than that. Let's say I get a publisher contract with a publisher, right? And let's say that the publisher, Zandy, you've got 2 books out there. They've both got pretty good Amazon reviews. You've been lucky. Maybe you can get lucky one more time, write another book for us. And so they say it's $17, right? And we want to publish this for you, so we'll put up the $1.50. We'll put up the $1.50 for you. Again, oh, I lost this one. I guess I best put that one on there. Did we forget that one there? It looks like we did. Let's just here. I'll pause it and get it back. That'll be better. I'll make it consistent. And then right here, let's say a publishing company says, well, we'll do one for you, and we'll put up the money to print these. All we want you to do is write the book. Fair enough. And I say, okay, well, what am I going to get out of this? And they say, well, we'll give you 10% of the proceeds. We'll give you a royalty. That's passive income, by the way, and that would probably be taxed at passive income as well, is we'll give you 10% of that. And I say, wow, that would be pretty cool. So that means I put in how much of my own money? I put in 0 of my own money. And so if we take that and we say, look, $17 minus that, $1.50 to print it is going to be $15.50. I'm going to take 10% of that. So we're going to go times 10% times 0.1. is $1.55 divided by 0, which I put in is an infinite return again. So that's pretty cool. Infinite return there. Here's another idea. Kindle. Kindle, we sell these for less. I don't know what I charge for Kindle, probably $10. I don't know what I even charge. My team would be able to tell me, but $10 minus 0, absolutely 0. Kindle's gonna take out 3 of that, 3 to 4 of that. They take about 30%, I believe. So that's what they take out of that baby. So 10 plus the 0 it took me to upload it for free on Kindle Direct Publishing. And you know what? By this time it's pretty. I don't even know if we have to do the math anymore. Divided by 0 is infinite return. So why take all that time to do all those? To start to set this up, that as this gets closer to 0, you begin to get what's called an infinite return, and it's a huge deal. I mean, it's just a huge idea to understand the law of infinite return. The last one I'll show you on this is the idea of a 401k. Maybe we can move the calculator down here somewhere, set it to 0. Is if a person doesn't believe in this idea of infinite return, just look at this article from Interview with John Bogle. You have Wall Street right over here, and you have you, the investor, over here, and let's say you make $1,000. Watch this. Now the financial system in this case takes about 2.5% out of that return. So watch this. If you take your $1,000 and you give it to Wall Street in a 401k, let's say, okay, $1,000, that's going to grow in a 65-year period to about $148,000. And if you'd like more on this, take my 401k class. And I walk through this in much more detail in my 401k class. So as this $1,000 grows over 65 years of life, from 20 to 85, 65 years of investing, that's grown at about 8% right there. So the financial system will take about 2.5 percentage points out of return. So you have this gross return of 8%, but a net return of 5.5. Why? Well, here's why. Look, some of this money's going to Wall Street and some of this money will go back to you. It's that simple. There's $148,000 in the pie. You put in 1,000, you let it go there for your whole life, and by the time you die, it's 148. Well, some of that money came back to you and some of that money went to them. It's that simple. And he says, look, it's growing at 8% on paper over here in reality, but on paper over here, they're taking 3.5% out. It's called compounding costs. So your $1,000 on your side grew to 30 grand. So what you're really going to see on your side is you're going to see that $1,000 going to 30, when in reality it went to 148. Look at this, $110,000 goes to the financial system, $30,000 goes to you. Think about that. That means the financial system put up 0% of the capital and put up 0% of the risk. That's why I love infinite return. Is in many of these instances, if I'm not putting in any of my money, I'm not taking any risk, and yet I'm getting an infinite return. So, infinite returns are not bombastic. The idea that they grow the money to 148 at 8%, but because you're only growing on your statement, it looks like the money's yours. It's really theirs. There's this thing called assets under management. Most important words on Wall Street. So if this is Wall Street over here, and this is you over here, and you earn $1,000, and you send it to them, it looks like it's yours, but it's really theirs. They've got it under their management. They're going to grow at 8%. Some of this money comes back to you. 30,000 is what they see you compounding at, but behind the curtain, they're taking 110,000 of that. Think about that. 110 goes to the financial system, 30 to you. Think about that. That means you put up the financial system, they put up 0, so their V final is 110,000, right? And their V initial is 0, which gives them an infinite return with absolutely no risk. So, if anyone from Wall Street wants to tell me that infinite returns with no risk are unrealistic, I'll just say, well, that's what you guys do. And that's what, I did with Kindle here. And that's what my friends in the real estate world do here. You can do this same idea with 401ks here. So if that's what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Okay, now what I'm not saying is that you can get an infinite return like falling off a log. An infinite return is not like falling off a log. But this is calculus. And if you take the limit, for all you calculus people, you can get your fix here. If you take the limit as V initial, as it approaches 0 as a positive number, you get infinity every time. That is the calculation, the calculus of infinite return. And so, let's go back to the beginning as we finish this segment on leverage. That's so important is your percent return has a lot to do with a bunch of things. How much do you know about the asset? How much do you know about fundamentals and technicals to get a good direction? And then how close to 0? The limit of this thing is simply your ability to take V initial towards 0 as a positive number. You get towards infinite return. And I would also say, as this happens, you can have less risk. Because if a Wall Street firm goes bankrupt, we've already seen that nobody cares about their commitments because the Fed will bail them out. And they'll buy all those toxic assets and promises that they had. So, that's the way the real world works on a high level. That's the way that the rich operate. And this is what we're going to be sharing with you in the Cash Flow Academy, in addition to long positions, short positions, and other positions. But I would just say, if anyone on Wall Street says there's no such thing as infinite return, I'll just point them to that. Say, go argue with Bogle then. The late John Bogle, he says it there. So when we come back, we're going to start looking at this idea from this premise that's so important of the V initial, dropping that as close to 0 and getting that down to 0 as many times as we can to get a better return. And I'm hoping that this offers people a lot of hope, because as they look at the money they have, the rate they have, and the time they have, as you tweak this, you say, well, look, I want a 10-year plan, right? And I only have $10,000, right? Or maybe I only have $100,000, right? And I want to see what I get out in 10 years. Well, if you can get a rate higher than what this guy's getting down here and get it up in this ratio, it's just a huge blessing and a huge difference to a person's life. So I'll let you do your own goals. I'll let you do your own main goals. I'll let you do your own education goals. And I'm hoping your confidence is growing as you're learning these principles, or at least getting more clear on something you might already have known. So with that, let's move on to the next segment, value investing. And we're going to speak a little bit about Warren Buffett here and Charlie Munger, and continue our journey into cash flow.